The NUE MASTER 80-watt rotary tool is among the cheapest rotary tools on Amazon, and it works great. Typically coming in around $40, it's about 3 times cheaper than my name brand Dremel rotary tool. However, NUE MASTER did have to cut some corners and make a few questionable decisions to achieve this prestigiously penny-pinching price. But before we get into all of that, let's see how this tool actually performs. Right off the bat, we're going to talk about the cutoff wheels, and it comes with a kit that includes both mixed texture, like mesh cutoff wheels that are really abrasive and will wear down a little bit as you use them, as well as these other kinds of cutoff wheels that are a little bit smaller. They come with a whole bunch of them here in this pack, and what these are able to do is some of them can cut through wood, but mostly they're going to be used on your metal and plastic materials. When I was using the mesh texture cutoff wheel, it was working really well. I was able to cut through this metal and even make a slot in the top of the screw without much difficulty. The tool bogs down a little bit some of the time, but that's kind of to be expected, and I didn't really notice any like major issues or anything happening as I cut through the material. Of course, plastic worked out great because it's so soft and the tool was easily able to cut through that. NUE MASTER is really thoughtful, and they do send you with a cutting guide, which gives you check marks next to all the different kinds of materials that the different attachments can cut. And inside the manual, there are a few speed suggestions for whatever you're cutting, and I tried to use those whenever I was doing these projects. One of my favorite parts about a rotary tool are the milling cutters. Now, what these allow you to do is cut sideways through your material, and they work really great on wood and plastic. Now, the wood, I was cutting a really soft pine wood, and it was working pretty well. Sometimes it would like stop and just like not be cutting, and I'm not sure if that's like a common issue. I have had better experiences using really high power sideways cutters like this. It was able to get the job done, especially if I applied a lot of force with my hands to hold it in place. If I let myself get a little loosey-goosey, it would jump around and cut like a big hole in it all of a sudden with some really bad vibrations. So it wasn't the greatest experience, but I don't think there's anything hugely missing. It's a little inconsistent, but usable if you really get a hang on it. It also comes with this milling and drilling attachment, and this screws onto the secondary threads. You also saw the cover attachment earlier, and the tool has 2 threads. One of them is going to hold your cutting attachment or whatever you're doing, polishing, sanding, and that's the inner thread, and the outer thread has a piece on it that can be used as just a regular grip to help you get more precise control, or you can put other things and screw those onto it, and then that gives you more versatility in the way you can do things with both of those threads on there. That's a pretty common thing for rotary tools to have. Now, when I was cutting through plastic, it was a breeze. The plastic was really easy to cut, and I didn't really have any vibrations. Just note that the one they send you with doesn't have any kind of tip. It's just a cutter in the middle. So if you wanted to try to drill through something, you'd have to use the drill attachment first, drill a hole, and then sideways cut through it. This tool comes with a ton of different attachments and also a manual, and then this little guide that I already mentioned, but the manual is actually really short, which is kind of nice, and there's a few key things you want to know. Before using your tool, you want to run it at full speed for 5 minutes to get those brushes inside of it set for the motor. And then, as always, you're going to want to read through the entire manual before getting started, just to make sure you have a handle on all of the attachments and tools that you're going to be using. But if we're just meeting, my name is Eli Tennant, and this is Maker Brain, where I love to help you access and implement your creativity through hands-on DIY projects, or equip you with tool review videos just like this one. So if that sounds interesting to you, consider subscribing or smashing the like button to show your support to me. If you don't like the video, then just hit the thumbs down. A super common use for these tools is engraving, and you can engrave all kinds of different things from metal to stone to glass to ceramic. And starting out with metal, it worked really well with me. I was using these tungsten carbide cutters. They're pink, and then they also have like a different larger version that's a little less abrasive feeling, and they worked amazing on the metal, engraving the way I wanted to. They're not super precise, but I mean, they're made of like tungsten carbide, and they can only get so accurate. A lot of that also comes down to my own ability to use and manipulate the tools. What's really nice is they give you a couple different shapes which are good at doing different kinds of things in your material. I really like the sort of cone pencil shaped ones just for my normal engraving where I'm trying to engrave like a couple letters on like some pliers or something. For engraving plastic, you're going to want a totally different kind of tool because you just clog up those carbide cutters. You're going to use just an engraving cutter, and these have a bunch of little tiny blades around them, and I had a little bit of a struggle engraving plastic because it's kind of hard to get insanely accurate with these, and it's possible I would have had more luck using a pointier tool. But as you go through the plastic, you want to run it at a really low speed so you don't just like melt it and create a mess everywhere. All in all, it worked out pretty great, and there's no real deficiencies with the tool that I'm noticing here. It's more just like some of the equipment that they provide isn't necessarily the absolute perfect thing for what I'm trying to do, and my own skills are limited. I'm not a professional at using tools like this. For engraving glass, they give you two kinds of tools. You have a diamond tipped engraving tool, and they give you several different styles of that, and then you also have those tungsten cutter engraving tools once again. Now, I tried the diamond tip tools on the glass, and it really didn't seem to like mark it at all. I didn't get any sort of engraving. It just sort of wore away some of the marker that I was using and like smudged it around, which was really weird. I thought they would actually be able to cut the glass. And later I also discovered they didn't work on the stone that I was trying to engrave either, so I'm not totally sure how these are supposed to be useful. They say they should be able to engrave those according to our little list, but maybe I'm doing something wrong with the speed. Those tungsten engraving tools worked beautifully though as I was engraving the glass, and the project I had right here is these measuring cups had all the measurement lines worn off, so I drew them back on with a marker and then just engraved right over top of that. Now, some of the original text was really small and hard to engrave, so I blew some of it up, and that made it a lot easier because it's still hard to get down to those really small details while you're engraving. Fortunately, the glass is so hard that the cutter doesn't cut super deep and it makes a smaller mark, and that allows me to get more detail than I was able to get on the stone or the plastic or even the metal. Now for our stone, it was basically the same story, but I could cut a little deeper and a little faster into the stone with those carbide bits. And I just made a little face here. My artistic skills are pretty limited, so it doesn't look amazing, but I was able to get a pretty good cut off and used a couple different tools to achieve that. Now on the back, it has a little bit of text, and for the box around that text, I used the diamond tooth like disc cutter, which worked amazingly on the stone. I probably had to cut this stone right in half without too much trouble. So that diamond tip tool works really great for cutting into stone and things like that. I also used that to create a nice flat surface for the text just by dragging it sideways, so you're able to do that as well with it. Now, remember, you can't put this actually flat because to use cutters like this, you actually have to have a mandrel go all the way through it, and then a screw goes into the other side, so if you put it flat, you'd just be spinning your screw head against whatever you're doing. You gotta keep it angled a little bit. Hey, this tool is actually only 30 bucks on Amazon right now. Now, it is the holiday season, but if you want to see if the tool is on sale for you, then click on the link in the description below, and it'll take you right to Amazon where you can see how much you'll actually be spending on it. Also, there are a bunch of other links down there to help you decide what the right rotary tool is for you, and some of those aren't even my own YouTube channel, just because I want to help you as much as possible with the best resources. Now, polishing was a really interesting story with this tool. It comes with a good number of polishing wheels, a nice screw mandrel to put them on, that worked out really well, and it also comes with a bunch of polishing compound, quite a bit more than my $120 rotary tool came with. The only issue here is that the container for the polishing compound is smaller than the size of the large felt polishing wheels. So you're not actually able to get the compound onto the wheels very easily. Most of the time to do that, you just stick the wheel into the compound and it spins around and gets the compound on the wheel so you can actually polish stuff. You might be able to do that with the small ones, but with the big one, it hits the edges, it starts actually melting the container a little bit and spits the polishing compound all over the place, even on my favorite flannel shirt that I was wearing. I attempted to take some out and like smear it on a piece of cardboard and then stick the rotary tool in it, but that was also really dumb because once the spinning felt piece touched it, it shot the compound around my room. It hit my nice light up here, landed on my hair. I think some of it might have hit my ceiling, and it splattered all over my safety glasses. So you want to be careful the way you're using the polishing compound, but once I got it on the part and was actually polishing, it worked out pretty well. And also, they give you wire brushes, which are great for polishing things. Now, you want to run wire brushes really slowly because the wires can actually shoot out of the wiring brush, and you want to keep yourself out of that way. But these will polish things up a little bit as well as you go over stuff, and that works really well on this cool like custom handle that I was making. And then I also polished up the edge of a tap handle that I had made in a machining class. So if you look at those side by side, you can definitely see that the polishing made a difference, and I didn't even polish it that hard. I could have made it a lot shinier and it would have looked even better, but the way to go here is usually to wire brush like the rust and stuff off of it so that you can really polish it with the polishing wheel. Before we get into how this tool does wood carving, I want to talk about this extra attachment that you've seen in several of these clips. Now, this is a flex shaft that goes on to the NUE MASTER rotary tool. The cool thing about flex shafts is that they transfer the power from the rotary tool from this one end, which screws onto the external thread and is also clamped onto the internal thread, all the way down to a fine little point that's a lot easier to control down here like a pencil. Now, this is not as industrially strong as using the tool directly, and it actually generates some more noise as the like flexible rod inside of here like slaps around a little bit, and it requires a little bit of maintenance and lubrication, but I really love having this, and it makes it way easier to do small detailed work. What I did here is slightly different than what they recommended. Originally, it came with a collet on the end of this, and a collet uses a collet piece on the inside. You slide your tool into that. The collet has slits in it so that when you put the outer ring and tighten it down, it tightens onto the piece. The problem with the collet that they give you in this kit is that it's really a little bit too tight for most of their tools. It's got like a pressure fit already, and I almost have to pound some of the stuff in to get it to fit before ever tightening anything down. So it's really awesome that they give you the 3-jaw chuck attachment because it is able to quickly interchange tools and holds on to stuff really well. Something else to note about the flex shaft is that it has a little bit of play in it, and I don't think it's going to give you as quite a concentric as of a motion, so it might wobble around a little bit if you're using this. To actually mount it into the piece, you have to get the center wire to actually come out of the back piece. The trouble is that most of the time it's inset there so far that you can't grab it with your fingers. Now, you could pull it out with a pair of pliers in order to actually get it into your part, or you got to tip it up so that it slides out of the bottom, and that can work as well because it's so lubricated on the inside. Once you've done that, you want to put the collet on and get it nice and secure. Then you screw it the rest of the way on. And what I like to do is mount the rotary tool up on a stand next to me so that I get a nice even curve with that flex shaft, because you don't want to curve it too sharp. And it's really easy to use around there. You could also set it on your lap and carve like that. I've done that before too. But when you actually come to changing tools in these devices, your main rotary tool has a locking button right here, which is super common, and you're gonna twist this until it finds a groove to lock into, and then you can mount your tool, and this isn't going to spin anymore, because if I don't push down on this, if I ever try to tighten anything into it, it's just going to spin the motor. So that's what the locking button is for. However, it's a little bit of a different gig on the end of the flex shaft because they don't have as much room to work with. Instead, there's a hole straight through the shaft in the flex shaft, and then you use your little Allen key that doesn't actually have anything on it, like no actual Allen, and that slots in there and holds it nice and firm. It goes through the shaft on the inside and the outside, not allowing it to rotate at all, and then you can adjust it. The cool thing here is that that hole is actually the same size as the shaft for all the attachments, so whatever attachment you have, you can slot in here, and then you're able to spin your actual end piece instead of just spinning the motor. And that's what allows you to actually tighten tools into it. Now, when you're using a collet, you have to use the little wrench that they provide to actually get it tight enough to hold things really firmly. And I had a couple instances where stuff slid out of my 3-jaw chuck, but if I really focused on tightening it a lot, or you can use the wrench to tighten it even more on the base of that 3-jaw chuck, then it's going to get really well tightened down. Now, I already did wear away some sections on there by using the wrench because it's such a small surface, so it's not really the most quality solution for achieving that. Wood carving went great on this tool. I was carving a really soft pine board once again with the words Mica 6/8, and it was really easy to punch into this with any kind of tool, and I could follow pretty precise lines as well well, and the stippling around the edges, creating all this little texture, went really well. Once I had all of that carved out, I wanted it to look a little smoother because there were a lot of little flecks standing around, so I decided to sand it. Now there's two different kinds of sanding things that they send you with. They send you with a flat sander, which is pretty great, and then also a round drum sander. Now with the drum sander, what I was experiencing at first was like sliding right off the drum, and that's really dangerous because it'll shoot it across your room if it slides all the way off. Eventually, I realized that you can tighten the screw on the top, and then that'll tighten your sanding drum around the inner drum by like flexing it out, and then it holds it super securely, and you're all good to go. You can loosen it, take it off, put a new one on if you wear that out. Now, the flat ones were great for this board here because I only wanted to take a little bit off, and the flat ones are flexible. I went through 2 of them sanding this board because I ripped them straight off the mandrel. The sanding went really well, and it was able to cut down on stuff really well. Now, with those drum sanders, I sanded on a stone as well, and the sanding the stone went perfectly. It didn't seem to wear the sanding drum away super fast, and it did everything I wanted it to do. In addition to all the other tools, it comes with 2 of these little hardened steel cutting discs that look like little tiny saw blades, which could come in handy for different projects as well. And I'm not totally sure the use of it, but it also comes with a plastic wire brush if you want to do something with that. So why is this tool so cheap, and should you buy it? What I believe NUE MASTER did is they focused a lot on just making a tool that worked without investing too much into the user experience of the tool. Now, it is a pretty light, slim tool with some good grips on it, but the ergonomics aren't amazing. The first thing you'll notice that's feeling kind of low end is the box. It's a really thin, like keep feeling plastic that if you squish it, you'll actually bend it. And then all the hinges in here are just this little like bent plastic bits. So if you open and close them like a million times, then you'll probably just break the hinge. And the handle, I mean, it'll carry the box, doesn't feel like premium at all, but this is not a premium tool, and everything does fit inside the box if you get a little smart with the way you pack it. For example, some weird thing is that once you put the tool inside, the cable has to take a crazy sharp corner out of the end of the tool, which isn't really great for the cable life. The tool itself is solid, but it doesn't seem like there's a ton of attention to detail, especially around the power switch right here. The housing is like kind of sharp on the edges, doesn't really feel like it was like molded amazingly, and the switch itself just seems kind of odd, like a stock little switch, which is actually kind of easy to accidentally flip, which is sort of dangerous when you think about the fact that you got a 35,000 RPM rotary tool right here. There is a little nice direction of travel arrow on the end of here that tells you which way it's going to rotate. Probably my biggest gripe with this tool though is the button placement, and that might not sound that bad until you realize that the locking button is all the way up at the front to change your tools, but before you do that you got to turn your tool off, and that switch is all the way at the back but not on the same side. The locking button's here, and then the switch is on the side down here, so locking button, switch, and then if you want to change the speed, that's on the back, and then it's on the other side back here to change the speed up and down, which is a sort of weird decision to me. Like, why would those be all around the whole tool? So basically it requires like 2 hands to turn this on and off, but it does have some solid grippy rubber around it, which makes it a lot more comfortable to handle. When we come down and look at the tools that it actually comes with, they're all pretty solid, but they're not of like the highest quality possible. When I compare it to the things that came with my more expensive Dremel tool, they're just sort of like low end and generic, but they're gonna work for you if you're not doing like crazy stuff. The biggest annoyance is that I think some of the carbide cutters don't spin perfectly concentrically, but that could also possibly be due to the fact I was using the flex shaft and it was spinning the entire shaft wasn't concentric. The thing is, even though it feels cheap some of the time when you're using it, like the attachments and stuff, the tool itself feels pretty solid. You can rest assured that you're saving money in that cheapness, coming in at 3 times less the price than a lot of other like premium rotary tools. But before I tell you if I think you should buy this tool, I want to pass the question off to you. What is your favorite power tool. Rotary tools like this are really versatile and can do a lot of different things, but maybe there's some other tool that you use a lot more. Let me know in the comments below, and I'd love to hear back from you. So should you buy it? Well, this NUE MASTER tool certainly packs a punch as an 18-watt rotary tool that can go from 10,000 to 35,000 RPM with a 6-speed dial here on the back. And because it is like a full-size rotary tool and not one of those like super cheap like pencil-sized ones, you have more power and also the capability to use a lot more different tools. For instance, you have that double thread set on the end, which can come in a lot of handy when you're doing more intensive grinding and cutting. So for most people, I would say yes, you should get this tool if you're in the market for a budget rotary tool, especially if you're not going to use it super frequently or you're only using it for like small crafty projects. And NUE MASTER does stand behind their product with a 1-year warranty coming straight off of when you buy it at Amazon. But if you plan on using a tool like this daily, especially for bigger projects, or you want something that you're more sure of and is like guaranteed to be really reliable and nice to use, I'd recommend going for a more expensive product, something maybe from like Dremel. So what would I choose personally? I want to be fully transparent here. NUE MASTER did send me this tool for the purpose of review, but I can say whatever I want in this video, and they are not paying me anything for this. But I would choose this NUE MASTER rotary tool over a premium Dremel tool just because of the cost. This gets everything that I want done, and the Dremel might do it a little bit better or a little bit more consistently or proficiently or a little more easily, but I don't use my rotary tools that often, and especially because it comes with the flex shaft already built into that $40 price, I'm saving a lot of money, and then I can reinvest that money in any other kind of crafting thing that I want, or possibly some really great bits for my rotary tool. Also, my projects tend to be on the smaller side, so I don't need the added power that the Dremel is going to give me. So if you want to steal a great deal on a good rotary tool, then click on the link in the description down below, or check out my review of the Dremel 4300 if you're interested in a more premium tool like that. As always, my name is Eli Tennant, and I pray that God would bless you and keep you on this beautiful day.